Welcome to Retail Retold, the stories behind how that store landed in your neighborhood. I'm Chris Ressa, in conversation with the people and stories shaping retail and real estate. Brought to you by DLC.
Well, recording. See that? Top
Oh, now you see it.
So no F bombs.
No F. Well, I mean, it could be edited out, but it is a family-friendly show.
I hear you.
So, are you going to get lease pilot?
So what are you talking about? I know last time it was more kind of we were trying to do to tee it up for pre ICSC.
So, yes. So real quick before we get there, are you going to get lease pilot?
Do you think I should get it?
Yes.
All right, because I just told him to send. I just told him to send me the contract.
It is. It's a no-brainer. It's pretty inexpensive. It takes a little while to get going, but for small shop leasing, at the moment, they can do everything.
Yeah.
But I think it's pretty clever. Like, Angie, are you familiar with lease pilot?
No.
Oh, so here's what'll happen. So you'll send a lease to call it some restaurant. They'll have 20 comments. The lease will come back. Take 3 minutes for the paralegal to upload that lease into lease pilot. It'll take 1 second for them to press a button. They press the button and it'll automatically put your preferred responses to those comments in the lease. Then you hit send and you resend the comments back to the tenant.
Yeah.
Oh.
And
Yeah, look at Angie's face. It's
yeah.
I undersold it 0.
Yeah, I'll tell you, Angie, I've been looking at it for a while, and I don't know if I told you, Angie Jana now is going to go back working for a law firm. So I went into the partners, and I'm like, I got to have lease pilot now.
Yeah.
And Chris, it's really a landlord's market here in Phoenix and Arizona in general. So yeah, we do shop space and we do nationals, quote unquote nationals, or more like franchise concepts. The Aspen Dentals and the big boys that want to have it on their form. That'll be a different situation. But Angie, I'll bet we'll be able to crank out the first draft lease within not even a couple hours, probably an hour.
That's awesome. I need to.
I find the first draft is good. Comment stack is what is great because what it does is it knows when the tenant says this about the assignment provision, here's what we say back. And then if they say this, we say this. But if they say this, then we say that.
Yeah, and what it'll also do, Angie, they have this little AI version or AI section. Say you want to write an exclusive, please give me an exclusive that's landlord friendly for ice cream, and it'll write this exclusive landlord friendly for ice cream. And if you want it a little bit lighter, just say no tweak, and you can type in, you can take things in and out and type additional text in on the fly. So.
Yeah, I need to have our COO look into this for sure.
Yeah.
So I think it's a great concept. I think the utility is widely underused. Like, think about all the contracts in the world. Why they focused on the space of, shopping centers with leases with ice cream stores, I don't know. But like the insurance business, every business where there's a contract and comments go back and forth. This guy they got it. And so it was created by this guy, Gabriel Safar.
Right. He left.
He left, who was a former attorney. And he hired all these programmers to figure it out because he was like, what we're doing is stupid because we keep saying the same thing to every tenant over and over, and it takes too long. And he's like, I would work so hard and do such a good job in quality. And I kept getting the same response from every tenant and every landlord I worked for. And I said, what was that response? It's too slow. And so I decided to figure out how to make it faster.
Yep.
Oh,
But Angie, I am looking for a paralegal.
okay. I wish we had a paralegal.
Yeah. Or a paralegal type.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Right.
here's what I got to, which is the renewal. That this was the first we were talking about the top 3 leasing trends. And so here's what I want to do. First, I'm going to introduce you guys. Then we're going to do Vegas recap before it was going in the show. Then we're going to talk about top 3 leasing trends. And we have the renewal. We have the changes in store format. And we talked about, like, some retailers are going bigger, some are going smaller, some are coming out of a mall, some are doing things, formats continuing to change. And so, retailers are saying to us, right, if we once said no to a space, please call us again, because if we said no because it was 25,000 and you thought we were a 30,000 potential, call us, because now we are looking at everything. We have to scour things. And the third was impacts on construction costs is what I had. Those are like the 3 leasing trends that we had. So and on the renewal, the one thing I said last time was the first one, which was it's not a quick bing bang boom, because we're taking the opportunity to actually get the lease to current market standards, which might not be the case if it was a lease done in 1982.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
so Brett Sheets had a real estate. What's the title?
SVP of leasing for Barclay Group.
SVP of leasing, and Angie's the VP of leasing at Vesta. So I'm going to introduce us. I'm going to say today we're going to talk about our top 3 leasing trends happening in the market right now. But first, let's talk about, let's introduce you guys, and then we'll go into things. So here we go. Welcome to Retail Retold, everyone. Today I'm joined by Angie Kory and Brett Sheets. Angie is the Vice President of Leasing for Vestar. Brett Sheets is the Senior Vice President of Leasing for Barclay Group. Excited for you all to be here. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
And I will be honest with everybody, we actually did record this pre-Vegas, and I did not hit the record button. So this is a redo. So, but now we're going to get to talk to everyone about what we learned and what we saw and what our takeaways were from Vegas. So stay tuned. But first, Brett, tell us a little bit more about who you are, what you do, and where you've come from.
Yes, absolutely. Hello, everybody. Brett Sheets, Senior Vice President Leasing for Barclay, as Chris mentioned. I started my career actually as a broker, did that for 7-8 years, decided to switch over to the retailer side, believe it or not. So I did real estate for Cold Stone Creamery for 5 years. Learned a lot about the national sort of platform. Met a lot of retailers across the country, met a lot of developers across the country, and a lot of brokers across the country. And so that helped me get to the next level, which was a REIT, one of the largest REITs in the country, and was there for 15 plus years. That's where Angie and I met. We had stuff in every state as well. And then when we merged with a different company, I decided to try development and give development a shot. So right now I'm doing the leasing for buildings that aren't built yet, which is fun. And I also handle all the internal renewals on the existing portfolio as well.
Excellent. Angie, how about you?
So this past ICSC a couple weeks ago was my 16th Vegas show. So I started in the industry in 2008. Brett took a chance on me, hiring me with no commercial real estate background. I came from the residential side. And I worked underneath him on his team for 7 years at the REIT that he mentioned, and really got my feet wet just on shop leasing. And then by the time I was leaving the company, I was working on more of the box deals. And then I moved over to a developer out of Dallas, Cypress Equities, spent 3 years there working on the conversion of, B malls and ground up development of a couple different grocery anchored centers. And then in 2018, I started with Vestar. So I've been here for just over 6 years. My portfolio primarily consists of our projects in Arizona and Nevada. And I'm currently working on 3 ground up new shopping centers. So exciting times because we are developing again after a 14-year hiatus.
Very cool. Let's start before we get into our top 3 leasing trends. Let's start with the biggest I see. So tell us, what were your takeaways from Vegas? What were your thoughts? Yeah.
Angie, you want to go first? You want me to? I can start out by saying, Barclay Group has the best kickoff cocktail reception on Sunday, so I got to throw that in there for sure.
I would agree.
I think we're gonna have to change venues. It's getting too big. 3 takeaways for me. Definitely is demand. Demand is still out there big time, especially in the growth markets. The Sun Belt markets. It's amazing, actually. First time in a long time it's been a landlord's market, and we're getting, 2 or 3 LOIs on one space. So, and we're working on about 8 or 9 different developments, just a lot smaller than Angie's. Ours are more grocery anchored type centers. Um, Still a big topic of conversation with the retailers. And we had, by the way, 50 plus meetings with my team. So it was a grind, and we don't have a booth, so we were hoofing it the whole time. I think we calced out we did like over 18 miles in a day and a half of walking. But that is really the costs, and right now, sort of the pay to play sort of thing is happening. These retailers realize that if they don't step up and pay, they're going to lose the space to somebody else. So they're thinking about occupancy costs in the future. Maybe not in 5 years, but when you look at some of these shop space rents that in year 16, because of rent bumps, they're going in the mid 80s in rent. At what point can they afford to pay those kind of rents? So that's a big thing for them, is occupancy costs. They want to grow. The ones that need to grow are going to do the deal, and they're going to pay the freight. And then I think the third one was still construction costs, and also just interest rates in general. And they all are praying and hoping that interest rates goes down, and that will help their model and help just construction and everything. So I think that those are the 2 big themes I got, or 3 big themes.
Yeah, for me, I mean, my primary focus was really pitching our ground up developments, a large one that we're building in Buckeye, Arizona, which will be 500,000 square feet. And I would just say the retailers are just super excited about Arizona and how much development that is occurring here. And as far as growth, um, I think everyone's, for the most part, pretty bullish. I think there's a few soft goods retailers that are taking a little bit of a slowdown for the rest of 24, and then they're going to circle back early 25 on what their future growth plans are going to be. But everybody, again, to Brett's point, the retailers are stepping up. It's especially on the ground up. They understand that it's very, very expensive for us to build these projects. So they're signing leases at the highest rents that I've ever seen. And I would say takes maybe a little bit longer to get those deals approved during their rec, because there's so much data they have to pull to support the rents. But other than that, it was a great show for us. We were jam packed at our booth the entire time. And really, honestly, usually Tuesday it's a ghost town, and I felt like it was still jamming when I left at 3:00.
Yeah, I noticed that same thing. I had
Yeah.
my last meeting at 3:00, and usually I thought usually the Tuesday's slow. People were heading to the
Yeah.
airport. Man, it was jammed.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you for sharing that. I think the first thing for me was first takeaway is last year we were talking about this supply demand challenge for the retailers, meaning there was no supply and there was excess demand. What I heard this year was an acceptance of that. And whereas last year, I don't think there was acceptance by the retailer from the terms of the deal. They knew there was lack of supply, but this year I felt there was an actual acceptance by the retailer, the leverage and the pendulum is swung into the landlord favor. The second thing for me on the takeaway was I didn't hear the R word once, recession. Last year I did. People were talking about going into recession last year. I didn't hear the R word once the whole show. I talked to a lot of people. And then the third takeaway for me is, you know, just how much retailers are scouring for space. People are looking, they want to talk about expirations in 2027 that you have in your shopping centers. And can you get that tenant out? They're looking at every bankruptcy list. And just the level of scouring to try to find space is pretty remarkable. So those are my three takeaways.
Yep. Great.
Did you guys hear the R word?
I didn't hear it once. Recession? No, I what I did hear was, we have to raise our prices because our costs are going up. So I did hear a few,
Yeah.
a few of them say that we have to make an adjustment. We can't keep going. The dollar store can't keep charging $1, right? So
Yeah, but no R word, which
No.
was surprising. I didn't hear the R
Yeah.
word.
I agree.
And last year I've heard it a bunch. People were talking about like that was pretty a defensive. Like I heard that in a lot of meetings where retailers were talking about potentially we're going to go into recession. I heard the R word zero, which was I had thought that we were going to hear some R word talk. I heard zero R word.
Of course, Chris, our word has two meanings to some of us, right?
Yes. What is that?
Ross or recession. Yeah. I can say that. Angie can't.
I actually
Oh.
saw Chris in the elevator going to the Ross landlord.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes, we did. Okay.
Sorry, Chris.
I think I'm going to actually have to delete that because they're a big client of ours and Angie. I think
Yeah.
I have to delete that.
All right, so delete that. They're not big clients of mine.
All right. So, and I know for a fact I do listen to the show. So, top 3 leasing trends. So, the first one is the renewal isn't getting done in 5 minutes, and maybe this isn't a bad thing. So, Angie, why don't you start us off on what's going on with renewals these days and why maybe isn't it getting done in 5 minutes like it might have been once upon a time?
You're by the way, Chris, you're breaking up a little bit, just so you know.
I'm breaking up.
Yeah. You're good now. Why'd you get your
So for us, a lot of our leases are very old, and the tenants are running out of options. And so when that is the case, we're really taking a deep dive into their lease because there's just a lot of clauses that don't apply anymore. And especially if the tenant's been in our center for 30 plus years, then and they're still interested in renewing again, it's most likely a strong store for them. So we really dive in and abstract the entire lease. So we're looking at not just, are they paying market rent? But we're looking at their CAM situation. Was there a cap on CAM that needs to be reset? We're looking at, does their exclusive need to stay intact? Most likely we're going to try to remove it because again, it's been a proven successful center for them. There's a reason why they want to renew after their options have run out. We're also looking at co-tenancy. Name co-tenancy not happening anymore in our portfolio unless it's a ground up shopping center. They need that to open, but going forward, it is a percentage of the total GLA. We're really looking into the prohibited uses. I mean, most of our old leases, we can't do movie theaters. We can't put a Dave and Buster's in. We can't put a gym in. So really just making, and we're restricted on how much office we could put into the project. So really doing a deep dive into the prohibited uses as well. Annual increases are super important for us. We won't do just your typical dollar bump every 5 years or 10% every 5 years. Um, so those are the top big items that we really are diving into. We're trying to add percentage rent as well to any lease that doesn't have any percentage rent, because we've seen since COVID that um, there's a lot of percentage rent to collect out there. And I think those are really the top ones that we focus on. I don't know, Brett, am I missing anything when you guys are doing your renewals with no options remaining?
Yeah, no, ditto to everything you said. And we do, I don't know, probably 25, 30 renewals a year. And for the past 2 years, and probably for the next couple of years, half of our renewals, as to Angie's point, are older leases and are out of options. And so we want to be fair and reasonable, but to Angie's point, I'm not going to renew somebody on a 2006 lease. I'm going to get them on our new lease form, and we're going to look at all those clauses that Angie mentioned. So yeah, it's a lot more work to do, even if they don't have options. You got a lot more. Some of our tenants don't report sales, so they got to report sales. So you don't want to make them unhealthy. And in some situations, we've told tenants, hey, listen, the market's changed. Your sales are A, rents in the market are B. It just maybe not makes sense for you to stick around. It might make sense for you to shut down or go look for a cheaper space. So we've even having those conversations.
Awesome. That was super helpful. And the reason I was breaking up is because the audio that was synced was through my camera. It wasn't through my mic. I had to switch the settings on this. So I'm
You
sure
sound you sound 10 times better.
I'm sure
Yeah.
my team's going to be really thrilled about that
Yeah.
first 10 minutes. On a side note, Brett, when you're not speaking, can you mute the I think we're hearing your breathing through that microphone.
Got it.
So I think this is really interesting because for a decade, the lease has incrementally become more tenant favorable. Every clause in the lease since the great financial crisis has incrementally started to become more and more tenant favorable. And there's certain provisions that have made it really challenging for a landlord to maximize value at their shopping center, whether that is exclusives and prohibited uses, co-tenancies, whether that's the assignment provision, recapture provisions, relocation rights, all these non-monetary things that really started to make their way into leases post 2008 and become more strict on landlords. Now landlords are taking a look at those and starting to peel that back so that there's an opportunity to maximize value at the shopping center. And it's funny that some of these provisions that are non-monetary, it's funny how, like, in today's market, they're now willing to do them, and the previous inhibited landlords' ability to do certain things. How important were some of these provisions that now they're acquiescing to let go of some of these? And to me, I'm hopeful that we're not only moving to a phase where we are changing these provisions that help the property, but actually that some of the tenants believe that this is a good thing that we're doing this, right? It's a good thing that medical and fitness are no longer prohibited uses in shopping centers, and they are now customary retail uses in shopping centers, and that's good for properties. I hope that it's not just that that the retailers feel landlords have leverage, so they're letting that happen, but actually that they feel this is a good thing for everybody involved. And it's not just that provision, but it's provisions like that to me are more than just a landlord being tough, but it's about, like, I think this is better for the property overall that you're going into. because this is what a 2024 world looks like. So I don't know what you guys think of that.
I completely agree with you. Don't have much to add to it, but you're
All right.
100% right.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. Second leasing trend that we've been seeing is the change in store format, or the constant change in store format. So I'll start, which is we're seeing change in store format from so many different angles. One, retailers are more flexible on size than they ever were. And for those who don't know, there was a point where when we were leasing space in the 2014-15 range, like if tenant's prototype was like 14,000 feet and you had a space that was 13,080, there's like some retailers that were 13,800 is like, we can't make it work. And now everyone's like, I don't know if we turned you down for a space you had, and that space was like 20,000 and our prototype's 25. Call us again on that. We want to take a look at it. We're trying to work and figure out how to do things smaller. We're trying to work on figure out how to do things bigger. We're going into different product types. We've done a lot of business with retailers who historically were only in enclosed malls. Now they've come to the open air shopping center. And I think this flexible format is really good for us. And we see, retailers are doing a really good job at innovating this, whether this is Ulta going into Target stores or Sephora going into Kohl's stores, whether that's, changes in size in our shopping center, different spaces they're taking in the shopping center. To me, the format and flexibility of retailers is at a premium today. And retailers who want to grow know they have to be flexible and are starting to figure out how to be nimble. And it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I would.
I was just say, Angie, you probably have a different take on this because you're doing bigger box, but all my smaller boxes, our development team, they're building the shop buildings at 70-foot bay depths, which wreaks havoc on the smaller tenants, right? Because the storefront, you don't want to go less than 17 feet of storefront. So a lot of the tenants are willing to step up and pay the freight, but we got to get them smaller spaces, and so that's creating some issues for us size wise. But otherwise, totally agree. They're being 10 times more flexible on where they're going to go. Somebody that used to have an end cap because of exposure will now go in between, especially if we can give them an architectural feature with a tower, right? Then with the big name on it.
So Brett, why don't you explain to everyone why 70-foot store depth on a small shop building, as you said, wreaks havoc. I'm going to say is challenging. I wouldn't say wreaks havoc.
Now you sound like my boss. Yeah.
It's challenging. And what would ideal depth be and why?
Yeah. So, and we've built bay depths at 50-foot bay depths, which is easier, but that's not the ultimate. I think the best is probably 60 to 65 bay depths, because then you're just more flexible with where column spacing is, the window mullions, just the architectural features. It's just bottom line, just if you're a 70-foot bay depth and you do a 1,000 square foot suite, it's a bowling alley. It's just, and half the tenants can't even lay it out. But that's what I was saying. They're being more flexible. So there's tenants out there that are figuring out a way, where am I going to put my cash wrap? Where we're going to put the bathrooms? How many tables can I fit in here? Because we're having to reduce the size of their storefront. So, and we have enough users that will fill up a 10,000 square foot shop building at 70-foot bay depth, even if they're the smaller suites. So.
Why would a landlord build to 70 foot bay depths if it's challenging? Why is your boss challenging you?
Very good question. It's all about NOI, right? And costs. By adding more bay depth, you're adding more GLA. You add more GLA, you're increasing your NOI. It does increase the costs a bit, but you already have people on site building the building, so it's not incremental. So that's bottom line.
Angie, what about you on the store format?
So, I would just say, like with the retailers and being flexible with their sizes. I mean, one great example would be Barnes and Noble. They're looking at opportunities within our portfolio that range from 8,000 square feet to 30,000 square feet. So it's pretty crazy. But if they want to be in a market, they realize they have to figure out how, and there's not a lot of vacancy, they got to figure out how best to really lay out that store. So and then with regards to your comment about the mall retailers moving, looking at opportunities, now in the power centers, the grocery anchored centers, it's I feel like every Vegas, there's more and more and more. So, it started with like Bath and Body Works, and then Sephora started doing it. Buckle's pretty aggressive with it. American Eagle, Aerie, Lululemon. So it's really nice to, as a, working for a power center developer, it's really great to see that we're now able to meet with some of these retailers that would never have considered one of our target or Trader Joe's anchored projects in the past. So that's been super exciting for us, and it really helps when we're building a large, 500,000 square foot shopping center where I want to have a soft goods area for all these residents in Buckeye that have to go 25 miles to get to the closest mall. Now I'm able to build some critical mass of these fashion tenants that typically would never even consider a project like this in the past. So it's been super exciting. In this project specifically, I've got a 20,000 square foot shop building that will be all fashion. Um, and
Wow.
the bulk of them they're typically traditionally a mall retailer. So
Fascinating. So trend one, the renewal is different today. Trend two, change in store format from size to product to everything is happening. The flexible format wins. Number three, construction costs play a bigger role in the lease than they seem like they ever have. I'm sure they always do. But right now, everyone's feeling that it feels like the whole lease negotiation is about the construction costs. And what I would say is, I like to call it the cost to install the tenant, whether that is the landlord's bearing the cost, the tenant's bearing the cost. If the landlord's doing the work, or it's in the form of TI and the tenant's doing work, there's still this huge cost that goes into these deals to install tenants. And it's getting more and more challenging to make the numbers work. Um, by all the leasing records that keep getting posted, it seems like we're making it work, but we keep hearing about how challenging this is. And so, and it seems like to dominate the entirety of the lease or LOI, it's already done in the lease, but the LOI negotiation is all about the cost to install the retailer into the space. So, Brett, I'll start with you. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, construction costs. I mean, it's constant chatter about it. We haven't seen them come down much at all. I don't know if Angie, if you guys have, but we're just not seeing them come down. So the way we've combated it since I've been here anyway is we really back down on what we're providing to the tenants, and we're doing the tenant allowance route. So we're providing what I call a modified gray shell. We'll drop in the RTUs, the air conditioning units, and we'll do a typically, 8 to 10 foot leave out in the back, and then we're just stubbing up everything into the back. We're not providing um, circuits or any electrical. We don't do any of that. We run it into the suite, and then they got to tap into it from there. And so some of the tenants out there, just hard for them to get their arms wrapped around that. So the tenants that we do repeat deals with, I call, we know that they're dialed in and they can handle it. They have either a construction team or they've done a few with us already. But if it's a mom and pop, we really, really make them focus on getting costs before they commit to us, because they may feel like they can handle it, but man, once they get the bids and they call us up and say, your TI allowance covered half of my bid, and so that's not good. The amount of allowance we're having to give, because it's market, doesn't get you up to a vanilla box, in my opinion. So I think that more and more tenants are trying to figure out ways to be more resourceful. If they're going to shrink their size, maybe they won't do public restrooms, and they'll just do one restroom in the back, for employees. So you see different ways of them trying to save costs as well. But like I said, I haven't seen them come down. I feel like they're maybe stabilized a little bit, but our big concern is, do the tenants know what they're getting into when they sign that lease?
Angie, what about you?
Yeah, so we take a similar approach on our new developments in trying to just deliver a gray shell, very similar to how Barclay does it. But with that, I mean, because obviously with like the shop tenants, it takes the risk off of the landlord, but because we are achieving the higher base rents, we're also budgeting a little bit more than we used to for TI. So for restaurants, you know, pre-COVID, we would give, $50 a foot, maybe $60 a foot. Now we realize if we want some of these, national tenants or national restaurants or even local chef-driven restaurants, um, we're pushing closer to $100 a foot, because we understand that everything is more expensive. But bottom line, we'd rather give them that money and let them deal with it than for us to take the risk and trying to turnkey their spaces. And then, for the junior anchors, our turnkeys have doubled essentially. I mean, pre-COVID, we could do a turnkey for most of the nationals at $50 a foot. Now we're going over $100 a foot. So, but the tenants understand that. The tenants also, a lot of those nationals have their preferred vendors that we have to utilize when we're doing the turnkeys. And a lot of time their vendors are more expensive than ours. So there's a lot of back and forth with construction during the LOI negotiation and what can you live with if, could we possibly use our HVAC vendor because, we can get them for half the price. So I feel like the retailers understand how much more it's costing us to do these turnkeys. They're agreeing to pay the rent that we need to afford to build out their store. But then the construction teams, I think, are starting to play nicer together, and they're trying to help each other hit timelines um and bring the cost down as much as possible because it helps both sides.
Yeah, so for us we do some new development, but primarily we own and operate existing shopping centers and we're replacing tenants in second gen spaces. And like you said, a turnkey used to be 60, $70. Today it's north of 100 for a box tenant. Small shop is much more. Uh, I think one of the things that is interesting is we keep having that conversation that you talked about at the end, like, hey, if we use this vendor, maybe the price is this. If we do this, then maybe we can bring the price back down to this. Do you really need X, to me, comes down to this: what is necessary versus what is brand standard versus what is operationally okay. And I think what happened, right, over the years, if you're a chain retailer in any retail establishment, the efficiency of having the same layout in space across the country makes a lot of sense. And then you want to provide the same brand experience to the customer, right? The efficiency of the store, right, for the supply chain logistics for any store manager that you put in the store makes a lot of sense from productivity and increases and and OpEx costs coming down. And then the brand standard, if you have the same prototype across the fleet, providing that consistent experience to the consumer, whether you're in Arizona or Maine, to me makes a lot of sense. And what we're coming up against is, what is the power of that versus the need for a store in this market? And where does the rubber meet the road? And to me, for the last decade, the the total pendulum was on, you know what? Operational efficiencies and brand standard is the key. And now it's, well, we might miss this market opportunity for the next decade if we don't act on that. How do we figure out how to maintain brand consistency and have high productivity, but maybe I can move the gondolas a couple of places and maybe the bathrooms can be a different place in this store than they are in the store in Miami. And that shouldn't disrupt the fleet to that extent. And we're starting to see that more and more. But for those who don't know and aren't in the throes of it, it's a big challenge
And now the conversation is consistently happening about how do we work together. And I think this is a positive to bring the overall cost to install a tenant down. We're spending a lot of time with tenants trying to figure out how do we work together, whether that's, to your point, Angie, maybe this vendor's the answer. I know you want new bathrooms, and typically your bathrooms are in the front of the store, but in this space, they're in the back of the store. If we leave them there, it saves 50 grand. Can we work with the bathrooms in the back of the store? And the answer, 8 years ago, a lot of times was no. But and the price was much different. But today, we're leaving the bathrooms wherever they are in the space a lot more often than we historically did. And I think this will be overall good, right? We're not, both parties not wasting money, right? Because at the end of the day, that retailer probably paying for that in the form of rent anyway. So now I think everyone's saving these unnecessary dollars. Costs are still high, but at least the conversation is happening about how do we work together to make the cost to install a retailer into a piece of real estate less expensive than it was.
Yep, completely agree with that for sure. In fact, there's still a supply chain issue, right, for certain things, the switch gear and whatnot. But we are definitely seeing construction teams. Every retailer now wants a pre-construction meeting, even before the lease is signed, to talk about, hey, how can we work together? And honestly, that has helped. That communication before the lease is signed has helped tremendously for us.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's a lot. Construction is more involved in the lease process than they ever were today.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, everyone, those are our top 3 leasing trends, which are the renewal is a little different than it used to be, change in retail format, and construction costs have never been more present in leasing deals than they are today. Angie, Brett, anything else that we didn't touch on that you'd like to talk about that we should bring up?
I don't think so.
Not that would get me not that wouldn't get me in trouble. So
I don't want to get you in trouble, so that's good. Well, listen,
thank you very much.
yeah, Angie, Brett, this was great. Thank you so much for coming on. I'm glad you guys had a great Vegas. I hope you guys crush it the rest of the year, and have a great 4th of July.
Thank you.
Thank you. You too.
All right, take care. Appreciate you watching. Hit subscribe. See you in the next one.